Hey family, Raymond here at Family Meeple, and today I'm going to show you how I go about creating my own 3D designs. Didn't know if that might be of interest to some people, so I've logged into my Tinkercad account and this is the item that we are looking to create today. This is a Marvel TemPad, so I'm making this for Marvel Zombies. You can see some of the detail there on that item, but ultimately it's very simple sort of squares and circles and whatnot. So starting off with just using a square to start off, and then you can see how easy that is to manipulate. If you've got specific dimensions, you can just type them straight in. So in our case, we know it's going into our Marvel Zombies crate, so we've got an idea of what those dimensions need to be. Or you can just click and drag as I'm showing here, and yeah, that works very well, and you've got the height, depth, width, breadth, everything that you would normally want to modify. And if you want to change the scaling, there is an option down here. So if you want to change that to 0.5 etc, obviously if you type in the amount, whatever you type in is what it will do, but if you're dragging, it will snap to those dimensions. So if you remember, we've got effectively the base of the TemPad itself, and then you've got a kind of like a lid that snaps down over the top of it, and you can move the camera around using the right click on the mouse. If you hold down shift, it moves the camera. If you don't hold down shift, it rotates the camera. So that's how this particular application works. Now we do need to do it twice. Now for some reason I do end up with an additional instance, but there you go. And now what I'm doing is I'm effectively creating another cube that is going to be a detractor. So this is going to delete whatever it sits over when I join it together with the items underneath. So it's a really nice simple way to break down your objects and sometimes get particular shapes that you might be after. And I'm duplicating it because, of course, as we saw in the picture, you've got effectively the two halves there. You've got the half on the left-hand side that stays situated next to the TemPad, and then you've got the side on the left. No, the left stays situated, and the right flips up. So that's your screen. So I fixed that on there, and I'm a bit confused. I'm looking at it and thinking, why is it still showing the other half? Anyway, I'll delete that in a moment. Okay, so we've got those sections in place now, so I've just made sure that's all aligned, and now I'm just dragging it across the other half. So this is the other half that we're now deleting over here, and up here is where you can group those items. They've literally just updated that now, so you can actually group with deleting or without deleting. So there's some additional options there now. So now you can go into rotating. As you saw, there's a rotate the screen, and you move over the object, you do get these additional handles that appear, which enable you to select rotation of see as whatever axis you wish to rotate upon. So I'm just having a trial and error trying to work out what's happening here. I think I'm again a bit confused at the moment because we've got that that duplicate instance, but there we go. Right, so you can see you can snap it. If you go further out, you can remove the snapping. You can just ignore that. There you go. So I'm just going to drag that right to the back and move that up. And I think it's as I move away, there you go, look, I accidentally drag, and that's where I've ended up with the additional instances. Okay, there we go. So that's the very basic form of what we're looking at in terms of cubes of the TemPad here. Okay, I'm thinking it probably needs to be a bit thinner as well. This isn't the same depth, and you see again, as I've said before, you've got that snap on there. So these are going into 0.5 millimeter dimensions. There we go. So that's much more like what we were just looking at with that thinner overlay. So the next thing we're going to work on is this circle. So again, you see these basic shapes over here to the right hand side. we actually have a default circle that you can delete items from, and you can see when the pop-up box to the right where it says cylinder, it's a cylinder, obviously not a circle, you can just switch from being a solid object to a detractor object. So those options are always available to you, whatever. So you could create a whole series of shapes and then just turn the whole thing as a detractor and delete from a particular item that you're crafting as well. So there are lots of options and capabilities. Now what I'll do is, if you hold down shift, typical fashion, it does lock the dimensions of the cylinder. If you don't hold shift, then it will go into those weird and wonderful obscure instances of. So what I'm doing now, I'm just moving it up from the base. We don't want that circle to go right through the base, and it shows you there as I was highlighting the distance from the base now, so at least you know when that 3D prints there's going to be an amount of that base that's still left there. So, and then certainly when you apply that, there you go, you've still got that base. Okay, so that's that element. And one of the nice things that's quite simple to do with this is when you want to create instances, repeating aspects. So here I've just gone in and ungrouped, and I'm going to regroup, so it enabled me to copy and paste the original shape back in, and then you can move it straight across, and there we go. So I've just now switched it back into a physical object that's going to create, rather than taking away from the edges. And I'm going to reduce it that bit more now in terms of the scale, so go down to 0.25 millimeters. So I want it to protrude slightly, ever so slightly, and of course this is going to be resin printed, so it will come out, all of this detail will come out on the print. And again, I'm just going to copy there. So what I'm doing is I'm creating that in a ring, and again, if you do shift with Alt, then it makes sure that as you reduce the scale, it reduces it based on the center of the item. So there we go. So now if I apply that, there we go, we've got that ring effect as we see around the edge here. Okay, so we'll take that back off stream. And yeah, I mean, everything from here on in really is just a combination of those things that I've just shown you. It is just applying and adding shapes, deciding whether you're using that shape to detract and remove sections, or whether you're using that shape to add. And it really is now just a case of adding in the finer details. I'm just wondering about the buttons that I'm going to add on. Do I want them to be slightly beveled? There are some limited options available in Tinkercad for a number of basic shapes. You can drop down where it says basic shapes on the right hand side, you can drop that down and get some more complex shapes. Some of them are created by other contributors and have been uploaded, but often they'll have quite restricted modifications, so you won't be able to rescale, etc. So yeah, there's limited capabilities in some of those, but there's certainly an option. Okay, so I'm just again just working on the notion of what we saw there in the TemPad. So you've got the two buttons just next to the circle. I've dragged that up. I'm going to delete that. So I've got that indented area there for the additional buttons. And I'm just going to have a slightly raised area in the middle of that section. Now what's happening here, what I'm trying to zoom in, is because I've made this so small, the object's so small, it's struggling when I'm zooming in. So obviously you could zoom in infinity, right? But Tinkercad does struggle when you get into those low details, which is why you'll see time and time again it will bounce back. But yeah, eventually I kind of figured this out, and what you can do is just Control A, select everything, drag it all up so it's nice and big, and then once you've done all your editing and modifying, manipulating, then you can reduce it back down to the scale you want. It will scale all of your objects accordingly, so you don't get that annoying instance where you group a whole bunch of objects and then they all scale all over the place, or they all scale but they maintain their kind of anchored position. I have seen that in some programs before. It can be very, very frustrating. Certainly you don't have any of those issues at all in Tinkercad. I don't know why you would want to rescale a group of objects and then not have them all aligned. It's very bizarre to me. Anyway, that issue doesn't exist in Tinkercad. It does work very well. Now, one of the things with Tinkercad as well is, as you'll see here, if you rotate around, when you copy and paste something, you always paste it to the right. So you can use that to your advantage, as I'm doing here. So I'm literally copy pasting, move, copy paste, move, copy paste, move, copy paste, move. So that just gives me that whole array of buttons for the TemPad really quickly. So you see there, within seconds I've got quite a nice layout there. So that's this section here. There we go, dealt with. Okay, and then moving on to the other section. Right, so I've clearly I've identified that. If you do highlight, yeah, I was just going to copy and paste that. So if you do highlight an area that has a cutout and you've put a whole bunch of other stuff underneath, when it cuts out, it will cut everything out. So that's what I've just demonstrated there. So I've just unchanged that. So I've just selected the highlight and the base, and then it retains all the original pieces underneath. So just things like that to be aware of as you go through using it more and more. But in the main, it is very, very simple to use. But it will be just little quirks like that where you think, oh yeah, I'm done with that now, I'll just flatten that off, and then suddenly everything disappears. You go, oh yeah, that's what I needed to do. So yeah, there we go. So now I'm just creating the other section. Now, so at this point I'm thinking, yeah, I could have probably made that probably a little bit wider than that on the original, but it will suffice. So again, just kind of replicating what I'd already created with the other section, just wanting to have those edges visible. And again, just grouping that off. The advantage, of course, of grouping as you go is it just means you're not going to inadvertently click something else whilst you're trying to manipulate a particular object, which can be particularly frustrating. And again, once you've got a basic shape, you can just keep copying and pasting, which is what I'm doing, rather than continually dragging on a new cube onto the screen and then having to make it smaller, etc., etc. So the way TemPad works, you've got this kind of almost this kind of little button screen in the lower right corner, and then you've got a series of buttons that's almost a kind of cursor pad, sort of up, down, left, right, presumably for the agents to manipulate what's on the screen. And yeah, it's just then trying to fit these in and make them look feasible. So you can see I've moved slightly too far over to the right. and I'll go down and again I'll just modify that bit further to get that finer level. Again, because I'm working so small, there is a point in the video where you'll see suddenly I realise I'm trying to zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and it keeps bouncing back out, and I suddenly realise, oh yeah, that's what it is, I'm just working too small. So you will see that demonstrated a little bit later on, but you get the gist. You see how simple this is, and you can just align, move stuff around, align stuff, make sure you're happy with everything. Again, at that point I'm just kind of thinking about the 3D printing itself and just trying to make sure we get the distinguishable detail. I think that's the key, and again, bearing in mind it's going to be very, very small. So this whole piece is only going to be 2 centimeters in length, or 1 centimeter top to bottom. So yeah. So what I'm doing now is just going to try and create a bit of a bevel on the buttons, just give it a little bit more detail. And you can get to a point where you literally just turn off that snap, and now you're working at infinitesimal detail. Here we go. So this is the point where I'm trying to zoom in, and you see it just keeps on bouncing out. And when I've hit the plus button to zoom in, we're using the software itself. That is actually as maximum it will zoom in. So that's where I just Control A, select everything, and then you can just click and expand that as you please. You can see everything just locks into place. There's no issues of stuff going all over the place. And now I can lock those the auto scale snaps back in, and it helps keep everything nice and neat. So I was in there just making sure I'm not going to eat into the main. Just group those up. So there we go. So now you can see the bevel that's achieved there. And again, just going to reduce that snap. There we go. Apologies, pinging. Got just reached out to a prayer group from my brother has a cancerous brain tumour in Australia, and he's just been put forward for, it's terminal, and they put him forward for some extra radiation, try and see if they can hopefully reduce that somewhat, but there is a risk it would increase the swelling, which then causes him issues just trying to function on a daily basis. So I reached out to local prayer groups and asked them for prayer. So that's the pinging that's going on, so apologies for those in the background. There we go. So when we don't use shift, then you can just drag, and it won't try and auto scale. And I think I was about to do it and then realised, oh, I need another one for up here, so so I just pasted that as is up to there. There we go. Okay, so again, group those off and you get the bubble, and group those off and you get the bubble, and that's it. He says, and then I realised, of course, I haven't actually fully lined it up yet. So I was just making sure it's happy with the lineup. And there we have the mains of your TemPad. Notice there's a bit of an indent at the top for the agents to kind of stick their thumb in. So you got a polygon over here, hexagonal polygon, and again you can just rotate that. I think rather than just a square piece coming off the top. So we want to rotate that, so we're cutting away that shape and section. I'm going to change it to cut away rather than add. And you can just drag it into place, and you've got the arrow to move up. And then once it's kind of in situ, we can then go ahead and shrink a bit more to about where we think size wise that looks about right. And we're just going to edge it forwards and then move it up, and like I say, just trying to take out that little chunk there. There you go. So that's your flip point, and when we merge those, that gives us that cutaway. So it's at the top of the screen there. I think we're about the last section coming up to. Just adding in a slight indentation for the screen. Yeah, so this is where the screen flips down. So at the moment that circle is sticking up above, and I think this is the point where I'm then realizing, what have I grouped together, what haven't I grouped together. So some stuff's already grouped. Obviously I don't want to cut away those buttons, so I'm now ungrouping various bits to get to the point where I can cut away just those circles. So you want to select all of those and then group that together, so we've got that cutaway. There we go. So that's where that screen flips down. We're just going to group that back up and group those, and then they cut away at the top. There we go. So now we've got the space where the screen can flip down into that section. So I'm quite happy we're almost done now. Getting towards that end, and then it's just the actual, a very slight indent into the screen itself, so not coming through. So it will be very thin when it prints. It will work, so I'm just lifting up a bit more there. And group those off. There we go. And in short, that is in the main what we need for our TemPad. Now of course at the moment this is too large. We'll need to go in at the end, group everything off, and as I mentioned, we'll need to then go in and just rescale this back down to what we want. So obviously all the ratios, as you can see, they stay the same and just keep getting smaller and smaller. I want to get down to 10. And that will sit inside the Marvel Zombies crate. The last thing to do then is to give it an appropriate name. Whenever you create any file in Tinkercad, always gives it a random name. This will be our TemPad for Marvel Zombies. And then once you're done, you're happy with your miniature, you come out and that's saved. There we go. And you get a little preview, and you can view it in 3D, and obviously again you can see how small that is. And then from there you can just download it. There's options for objects and STL. And that's it, folks. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you again at some point soon. Hopefully that's been of use to some of you. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you back at the table soon. Ta-ta for now.